I really hope the longest 11 minutes is not an accurate representation of the youngest generation because it's a little bit frightening if it is. This is the second segment of the second episode of the 22nd season of Arthur, and Buster, Arthur, Muffy, and LaDonna are at Arthur's house, and they're all using the internet doing their own things, and then the internet goes out. And honestly, it is one of the worst things in the world, particularly if you're in the middle of doing something with the internet. And they all begin to panic. They don't know how to get the internet back on. It turns out it's actually affecting other people on the street. And they go into the garage, initially to ask Arthur's father if he can get the internet back. And they begin to discover old things like Polaroid cameras and the radio and other non-internet based things. And they start to look in the encyclopedia for how to turn the internet back on. Encyclopedias, these books that were definitely published at least before the internet had its heyday, which is still now, of course. And then they have a task. They have a really important job to do, but can they do it and work out how to solve this problem without the internet? And obviously, I'm not going to say what the answer is, but it definitely doesn't paint the youngest generation in the best light. I feel like most children know what a Polaroid camera is to the extent where they wouldn't be completely terrified of it. Um, and, I feel like the radio. Well, I say this, maybe the radio is quite obsolete, apart from car radios. But I don't know how many people listen to the radio on an actual radio, on a radio player, rather than, streaming it online and things. So I don't know, it's hard to kind of judge whether or not this feels like an extreme exaggeration of what it's like to be a child today, or if actually I'm just a bit past it. Somebody posted something on the internet the other day, I can't remember who it was, saying that children today talking about the 90s is the same as children of the 90s talking about the 60s. And I refuse to accept that. That that doesn't seem right. But then, in that same thought, yeah, technology of the 60s would be quite bizarre to me as a child in the 90s. So it's the episode gave me a lot of confusion and made me feel a little bit anxious about the passage of time. It is obviously for younger children an educational episode into what life used to be like, but it also shows that actually, if the internet goes down, don't panic. There are other things you can do, there are other ways you can occupy yourself, and there are other ways of solving problems. Which, yeah, even I think if the internet went down, I wouldn't know how to do anything ever. Um, which I feel like sounds like an exaggeration, but is probably more true than I'd care to admit. Really good episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. It did make me feel quite anxious about the passage of time, um, but it's also quite a moving episode as well. Definitely one that I enjoyed.